Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of For the Fans. This week's a little bit different. This is it's the off season, so there's not too much to talk about as things going around the NFL itself. No updates on games, but more so updates on what the talk is around the NFL. Where some of the big things happening as of right now. And as you guys know, it's like we weren't there last week. It's because we're doing the bi-weekly thing to get more news and get more information on what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. And what's going to be really exciting about us doing this every other week thing, as you mentioned, Shane, getting the more news. We do have a good amount to talk about tonight, and of course, it's not going to be really surprising what we'll be discussing. A lot of it is going to be revolving around destinations. Possible destinations for some of the really interesting free agents that are going to be coming up during this offseason. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about the draft, of course, and talking about some of those players who are coming into the NFL as rookies and what the future holds for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to that time. I think Combine's in not this week, but end of next week.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, so when we come back, not next week, but the week after, I think we'll have just finished up the Combine.
We just barely getting into a little bit of the more free agency where we're going to start seeing franchise tags apply. We're going to start hearing more juicy details about some of these free agents. We've already heard a little bit recently, which we are going to discuss here, but we're going to start to see more of the meat of it. Some more of the big questions are going to be coming up probably when the next time that we get together, right, Shane?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But before we get into really the meat of it, I'm using that term again because it really fits with the situation. Before we start talking about free agents and before we start talking about the draft, we do want to cover just a little bit of news, some stuff that Shane and I have brought up that we kind of want to discuss a little bit, hear what you have to say, and really just think about what does this mean for next season of the NFL. The first of which is pretty big news, in my opinion. It shocked me a little bit, but as of this week, Cleveland Browns defensive end Myles Garrett was reinstated by Commissioner Goodell, which, as we know, he was suspended indefinitely during last season for his brawl where he clubbed Mason Rudolph over the head with his own helmet. The interesting thing with this, though, is now that Myles Garrett is back in action and he will be returning for the next season with the Cleveland Browns, he is still continuing to say that Mason Rudolph used a racial slur against him, which is what provoked him into starting that big brawl, one of the craziest brawls that we have seen in NFL history in the past few years.
I would say even of all time. I mean, even going to the early days where like people didn't really have pads and things were a lot more loose and relaxed. Like we talked about on the show, how sometimes we wish like the NFL went back to the good old days where it was a lot harder, tougher, stronger hits. And I'm not necessarily saying that's what we wanted, but
we don't want Bush League.
we don't want that. That was that was a whole different scenario, but I still like to see that like physicality, but not to that extreme. Like bigger, harder hits, I think is what I'm trying to say.
That sort of stuff that Myles Garrett pulled, keep that in the XFL. I don't know.
Yeah, keep that in the XFL where it could be staged potentially because Vince McMahon owns it and he owns the WWE. So
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, but honestly though, Shane, what are your thoughts? Do you think I want to go into this a little bit because I have my own thoughts with it. Do you think Mason Rudolph said something? Because the reason I bring this up is because Coach Mike Tomlin of the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's not really one to be vocal in the eyes of the media, but he actually went on, I think it was Hot Take earlier this week, literally just to defend the character of Mason Rudolph because he did not like what Myles Garrett had to say back then when he first started saying it, and now that Myles Garrett is back in action, he's been reinstated, and that he's still saying it. But really, what are your thoughts? Do you think Rudolph actually said something, or do you think Myles Garrett's just making it up?
you know, it's hard to say because it's kind of with both players. We never had this kind of situation occur with both players previously. All past seasons, they've been fairly good players both on and off the field. And then just for this game to come in particular, because the Browns and the Steelers play each other twice a year.
Mhm.
It was specifically this game. So it just kind of like were tensions just high between the two, and maybe Rudolph did slip something out, or maybe tensions were high where Myles Garrett thought Rudolph had something that didn't actually come to. I can't really say. I think for now it's just kind of up in the air of who said what. It's kind of like a he said she said situation.
Exactly. If I were to offer my own opinion just on this before we move on, because I don't want to spend too much time on this, um, to be perfectly honest, I feel like Mason Rudolph said something. I don't necessarily think it was a racial slur. I mean, it's even hard to tell what you're saying between, having the helmet over the top of you, muffling that a little bit, and a very loud crowd that was playing there, especially when that sack happened. The reason that I'm still not completely sold on that too, the reason that I'm thinking maybe something was said is because the sack happened. They were scuffling on the ground a little bit. It looked like it was going to stop, but then it looked like Mason Rudolph aggravated the situation. It almost looked like he was trying to still pick a fight with Myles Garrett, and then all of a sudden Myles Garrett exploded, and then we have what happened. But it kind of goes back to what you were saying too. Mason Rudolph hasn't been a person who's in the spotlight until this season, and as for Myles Garrett, he's not Vontez Burfict. He's not a guy who kind of gets into a habit of getting in trouble. This was kind of just this one weird random incident that, unfortunately for him, is going to leave a big dent in his career. People are going to be talking.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I made that pun, but
I'm sorry. I'm not meaning to laugh, but that was just. But I mean, let's look at it like this. Like, we have seen in the past other situations where players got heated and thought one thing was said over something else. And sometimes the player did say something, sometimes not. I mean, we can look back and we can pull up many, many different arguments and fights that have broken out because of all the tension going on because of the game. Either it's a really close game or one team's not doing great and the other team's just dominating them. It's
Herman and Crabtree, that's a big one I can think of right now.
another one, AJ Green and Jalen Ramsey.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That one was a big one where AJ basically came up from behind Jalen Ramsey because Jalen Ramsey mouths off to everybody. That's just who he is during games.
Big crash talker, yeah.
AJ Green didn't like it, and AJ Green at the time was a very highly respectable player where no players really had an issue with him, and then he just comes behind Ramsey and just puts him in a chokehold and just starts throwing him to the ground. Like, that's where I kind of see it, because I've seen like a lot of different situations where something happened and it just did not sit well with one or both players, and then something bigger came out of it than necessary.
Yeah, that's definitely a good way of putting it. And I don't really want to say anything more on it. I think the only thing that would cause me to really bring this up again is by the time, the Steelers and the Browns play each other once again. But I don't think that's going to be a big deal because I don't think Mason Rudolph's going to be the quarterback. So I'm kind of thinking, okay, whatever. Maybe someone said something. Maybe they didn't. Let's put that issue to bed.
Yeah, just bury it, throw it underneath the bridge and get over it. Let's move on from this. Yeah.
Duckmaster beat us to us. Don't worry, we've already got that on the list. We're gonna bring it up.
Oh yeah. He is right on it. Don't worry, it's gonna be talked about. I saw it earlier today, and that's definitely going to come up about the potential 17-game season, having a 3-week preseason, and adding something else into the mix.
We're gonna actually talk about that after one more thing. We had two more things, but this is really the other one that I'm like, okay, we need to cover this one, and then we'll talk about this new potential format for the NFL playoffs. But one thing to bring up beforehand, it is official. Drew Brees will not retire this year. He's confirmed for 2020, and he said he's gonna make another run at it with the Saints. I'm gonna be honest. As everyone knows who listens to this podcast, everyone knows here I'm a very big Chicago Bears fan. But I'm going to be completely honest. If the Bears don't make it to the Super Bowl this year, which they likely won't, man, I hope Drew Brees gets one more ring.
I think
I'm being
every quarterback. I think Brees deserves it the most right now.
Drew Brees is just such a humble and talented player that I feel like just really has not gotten his dues. Yes, okay, he does have one Super Bowl ring, but I feel like for how talented he is, he needs another there. And to be honest, we almost thought that this season, this NFL 100 season, was going to be Drew Brees' last run on the field, but if anything, obviously he's going to be back for this season, but I bet you that this next season is going to be his last season. We're going to see the Drew Brees farewell tour, possibly.
And I don't want to say that because he is such a good player, and I feel like he's still doing really well. Like, compared to Brady, Brady had a very sluggish year this year. I think Brees still has more left in the tank than Eli Manning, than Tom Brady, than Phillip Rivers, even, who came in as his backup.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, it's hard to say that this will be his last year. I'm thinking he might have an extra 2, 3 maybe. But I think after the next, 2 or 3, if him and the Saints do not get another Super Bowl win, I think he is going to call it a quit after that.
Yeah, and I'd be willing to bet if they did win the Super Bowl this year that would be it for him.
Oh yeah, I would say the same thing.
But anyway, that's already common knowledge. Everyone really knows that Drew Brees, he's coming back and he's going to be with the Saints. The Saints are going to extend his contract. That's going to happen. What is interesting, and we don't know that's going to happen, is what Duck Master already brought up, and that is the future of the NFL with how their regular season is going to work and how the postseason is going to work. For those who don't know, the NFL is mulling over the possibility of adding an extra week to the regular season, so the teams will play 17 games. Am I correct? Yeah, 17 games. Yep. One less preseason game. But the interesting thing that's coming with this, though, is they are talking about adding the possibility of having 7 playoff teams from both the AFC and the NFC. So, in this case, 3 wild card seeds. So, had that happened this past year, say if they had done that in this past postseason, then you would have seen the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC as the 7th seed, and you would have seen the Los Angeles Rams as the 7th seed in the NFC.
And the way it's coming out, so it's going to be 3 weeks of preseason, which I agree with. I think preseason can last a little bit too long at times, where I feel like most teams during the 4th preseason is basically trying to fill out who's going to be the backup. I like the thought of the 17-game regular season. It's going to keep competition high, and then it's going to have that 7 teams from each side competing. But that also only means one team, the number 1 seed, is the only team that gets a bye.
Right, which I think, now here's the thing, to add to what you were saying. I like the idea of adding the extra regular season game, because then I'm like, okay, good, the preseason ends quicker, we can get rid of that crap, and then we can just move on to, the actual fun stuff when teams are actually trying. I mean, the only times when, I hate the preseason, I hate the Pro Bowl, because there's no competition. I can't stand it.
The Pro Bowl, they don't compete in the actual Pro Bowl, but they compete in the games before the Pro Bowl.
I know, but if you had seen the NBA's All-Star game this past weekend, you'd be like, "Oh man!"
I saw the NFL pieces.
The NFL has gotta do something where they can make it like that. I don't know, but anyway, moving on, slight tangent there, because I always seem to throw one in there about the NBA because I'm upset with basketball. But where I was going with this is, okay, yeah, the preseason, we move on to the regular season faster. I think it would be really exciting just to have that extra game, that extra week of football. The 7 playoff teams, I do like the idea of there's a little further bit of a push for, we got to be that team that gets the first round bye. We get that extra week to prepare. That would up the competition for sure. But I feel like if you add another team that's in there that's only so-so, it's almost like, what's the point? And because if that was the case, then let me think about this. The Pittsburgh Steelers would have played the Kansas City Chiefs. The Los Angeles Rams would have played the Green Bay Packers. If we're going by the seeding, in which that case only the Ravens and the 49ers would have had a first round bye. I just feel like it's a bit much.
And And real quick
as
before I
far as
go off,
adding more.
yeah, real quick before I go off on my thing. So Duckmaster is asking, could this new rule be a money grab for Goodell? More game/playoff teams equals more money for him.
When is it not a money grab for Roger Goodell? Let me just Doug Master, you're probably chuckling at that comment. I don't know for sure, but the thing with it is yeah, it's I do feel like it's a bit of a money grab because the NFL, they're always trying to rake in lots of money, and um, but like if it's more games / more playoff teams, I really only see that's the biggest benefit there is it's bringing in more money.
Let me just
Um,
throw out this controversy right now because this is going to lead up to why I agree that this is a huge money grab. Who has the #1 selling jersey in all of America?
that would be number 12.
Tom Brady. Everybody
Yep.
knows Brady. Even people that don't even watch football or know nothing about football. A lot of them have Tom Brady jerseys. And part of the reason why I think, and this could be completely wrong, I'm not saying the Patriots have cheated every single Super Bowl, but some of the calls that have gone more their way as to against their way could have been a little bit of Roger Goodell saying, hey, we gotta make sure that our face of the NFL stays nice, pretty, and clean. That way we all get more money in our back pocket.
Well, if we're going in with that controversy, Shane, I think there are a lot of teams, or sorry, not a lot of teams, but a lot of owners who, and again, this
Who
is
do
getting
the
a little
same.
conspiracy. This is getting a little conspiracy theory-ish, but there are a lot of owners that I kind of think to myself, yeah, they kind of got Goodell wrapped around their finger. The three that I'm specifically thinking of are Stan Kroenke, who owns the Los Angeles Rams, Jerry Jones, who owns the Dallas Cowboys,
Gosh.
and as we talked about it before, Robert Kraft, who owns the New England Patriots. I don't know the extent of that, like for sure, if that really is a thing. Again, it gets into conspiracy theories, but one thing that I want to add with that too, as far as getting more money in there and selling more tickets, might be a little bit more of a help for the owners as well. And I say that in the specific aspect of, Shane, this season we are going to see the debut of two brand new, very, very expensive stadiums. We are going to see Allegiant Air Stadium in Las Vegas, which will be the new home of the Las Vegas Raiders, and we're going to see Sophie Stadium, which cost, if I remember correctly, $5 billion. It's going to be the new home of the Rams and the Chargers. That's a lot of money. And I feel like this is helping them out too with the money grab of, okay, we've got a longer season. We've got a little bit more that we're able to throw around here as far as selling tickets and bringing it home for all this money that we have just spent.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. Like, it could be a huge, giant cash grab. Yeah, I'm honestly thinking that it could very well be a cash grab. I mean, I'm saying this just because the Jaguars owner, I love my team. Shad Khan, who's the owner, who's one of the wealthiest NFL franchise owners, he recently made the decision to move so Jaguars usually play like one home game a year at London. He made the executive decision to take a second home game out of Jacksonville and move it to London as well, most likely for the extra money.
Yeah.
Which, for me as a Jaguar fan,
Under the guise of we are growing the NFL in international countries.
but why is it only the Jacksonville Jaguars? Why wouldn't you get somebody, let's say, like a more? No, I hate to bash my own team, but let's try to get a team that sells a lot more in the U.S. and try to market them overseas instead of a team that is very small in the U.S. and trying to market them across seas.
What you're saying is could we make the possibility of having the Patriots or the Cowboys or the Seahawks play a game in London and seeing how that would market?
I would say the Patriots probably, if anything. I mean, now it's kind of too late because the Jaguars have been there for like 4 to 5 years and they're unofficially London's team. But imagine if the Patriots played one game there a season. I feel like that would brought in a lot more money because Tom Brady is a bigger name than, at the time, Blake Bortles. Like,
This is true.
the Patriots had a lot bigger name and a lot bigger face overseas.
And I agree with you on that. And I think that actually provides a good segue into our next discussion. Shane, which is talking about the future of some big free agents and where they could end up playing this next season. The reason I want to transition to that is because you brought up Tom Brady, his face with the New England Patriots. We don't know 100% for certain that Tom Brady will stay a Patriot this year. And so we're going to be naming off all these players that we want to talk about. Okay, well, what's their situation right now and where could they go? And of course, the biggest name there, the one that we're going to talk about first, is Tom Brady.
So here's a funny thing. This is a little side tangent, and I'll talk about it a little bit more once we get to him. But I was looking at like NFL CBS or something like that was saying like how they ranked like who are the top free agents to watch, and you'll never guess who was number one on that list.
Was it something dumb?
It was something pretty dumb.
Or like Jameis Winston or something?
Oh, no, that would have been hilarious. No, it was Dak Prescott was the number one to watch. They're like, okay. He's the best candidate. He is the top potential free agent this offseason. And this is going back to our money talk. But it made me literally just think, I was like, wow. I feel like the NFL is very much run by the almighty dollar now instead of actual football.
Yeah, well, that's...
I'm sorry, yeah, Dak Prescott is not number one.
No, I agree. That when you said that, I said really over Tom Brady or Drew Brees, but
Tom Brady was number 4.
Each their own, I guess.
Drew Brees, I think, was number 3.
Like I said, to each their own.
Yeah. Anyway, Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Tom Brady. So let's talk about him.
You go ahead. I keep interrupting.
It's all good. I was like, man, I feel bad because I feel like I keep interrupting. Tom Brady, do you think he is going to stay in New England? Do you think he's going to move on? Where do you think he's going to go, and what tools do you think he's going to need in order to be successful at wherever he is?
I'm going to specifically list off 3 teams that I think are possible destinations for Tom Brady because he's kind of the big one right now. The first one is obviously New England, and I'll start off with that one. To me, it's the most obvious choice for a 42-year-old player who has done all of his NFL stint with one team, and with a good relationship that he does have with the owner, with Robert Kraft. I think that's the most ideal destination for him. In which case, he would get a contract that is a 3-year contract, but the last 2 years are voidable. The one thing that I think is difficult, though, if he stays in New England, though, is I know you and I have talked a lot about, and we sometimes have differing opinions on this, of, talking about how this was kind of a rough past season for Tom Brady. I mean, heck, we didn't even see the Patriots in the AFC Championship, let alone the Super Bowl this year, which I'm not complaining about, but it was a nice change. But you and I have talked about, was it Tom Brady or was it, the lack of talent that he had around him that was able to set him up really well? We've talked about, first of all, the fact Tom Brady is not a runner. He is a pure pocket passer. And in that case, he needs to have these really, really talented, be able to go down there and be able to, to cash in on these throws that he's making. So I feel like if he is going to stay in New England, maybe he doesn't get as paid much of the big bucks, but New England goes after other receivers. Now, as I say that, I don't mean low market, find him off the street wide receivers that the Patriots have done before. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if they want Tom Brady to stay, if they really want to do well, they got to go big. They got to cash in on some really big receivers. Now, I'm not talking about Antonio Brown or something like that, about trying to get him back. Some of the names that came to mind for me, what if they went after A.J. Green from the Bengals? What if they found some way to get a hold of Odell Beckham Jr. from the Browns? I had one other in mind, but now it's slipping my mind as far as what was the other. Amari Cooper from the Dallas Cowboys. These are just a few names that have kind of come to mind of like, what if the New England Patriots had spent these money on these receivers so that way Tom Brady has them, plus Julian Edelman, who is really the only decent receiver with the Patriots squad right now. Could essentially set up another return to glory for the New England Patriots. Before I move on to my other teams, Shane, what is your thought on Tom Brady staying in New England?
So my thoughts, I still don't think that his receivers are the biggest issue. I'm still because I'm looking at I don't have the roster pulled up anymore, but he has Julian Edelman, who has been a good, reliable receiver for him. He's had Mohamed Sanu. He's had receivers, and he's been able to get the ball out to each of them equally with them gain big yards. I think instead of like just a wide receiver, I think if anything, he's missing a big dominant tight end.
I would agree with that.
With the
Him, it was a bigger loss than I think the Patriots had realized losing Gronkowski.
Because in most do or die situations, if Brady needed somebody to get the ball, he usually threw it to Gronk because Gronk would either come down with it or Gronk would prevent it from getting intercepted.
It was a typical check down play. He was scrambling, and Tom Brady can't scramble for long because he's old, so he threw a check down exactly to Rob Gronkowski. I completely understand that. I think you're right. He does need a good tight end. But when I talk about, sorry, go ahead.
Finish.
Well, I was going to say, but now it comes to, you said that there are, wide receivers that he has to tell in there. Yes, there is Julian Edelman, but that's easy enough for the defense just to double team or triple team Julian Edelman because you have these other players in there. Josh Gordon went to the Seahawks, and he's not even technically playing right now. You have some players in there like White, Burkhead, Dorsett. They were not really doing that well this season. That, in my mind, just leaves N'Keal Harry, who was the rookie, who, to be honest, was kind of a bust. I hate to say that because Arizona State, that's my college team. That's where he's from, but he was a bust.
You gotta also remember they did get Mohamed Sanu middle of the season, and
yeah,
looking at the different stats. If we're specifically breaking down the stats, each player got the ball pretty close to the same amount of time as everybody else with almost the same yardage.
I'm not saying that it's all the wide receivers' fault. Excuse me. I think it's a little bit of both, and I will agree with you too that if the wide receivers are well covered, which let's say for example the Tennessee Titans did a good job of covering those receivers, he needs that tight end. He needs a new Gronkowski.
And I think that's what ultimately became the biggest factor because in a lot of the games that he played, in a lot of big games, sometimes he would just throw a Hail Mary down, and who was that Hail Mary usually to? Rob Gronkowski.
Oh, no, sorry. You're talking about in past seasons. Yeah.
Yeah, in past seasons. Like, many times he's either just chucked it down to get to Gronk in the end zone, and I've literally seen, we've seen games where there's literally like 6 defenders in the end zone single-handedly trying to stop Gronk. And at that point is Gronk rarely came down with it, but sometimes he did, and I think that was the scariest thing is that I feel like Brady felt like he could trust Gronk to either make a strong solid block for him or be open for that good check down that we have seen that Brady likes to throw to get that check down and keep the drive going and keep fueling the Patriots' fire.
Right, and those two also had a really good trust factor between the two of them. We don't between a quarterback and a tight end. That's pretty admirable. I don't think we really we don't see that much anymore, except for maybe Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, maybe Jimmy Garoppolo and George Kittle. But I think you present a good point that I think we're in somewhat of an agreement here that if Tom Brady does stay in New England, he's going to need some help because he's getting kind of old.
Oh, yeah. And in my personal opinion, I don't think he's going to stay in New England.
So what are your other teams you're thinking? Because I have 2 more, but I want to hear what you have to say. Let's see if they match up.
I've been seeing some that have been shopped around. Some I can't agree with at all. One that was being shopped around was the Las Vegas Raiders.
That was one of the ones I was thinking about as a possibility.
Yeah, which for me, I feel like it would make sense a little bit. I don't think it would be the best move for the Raiders long term, especially since they have Derek Carr, who's been hit or miss, but he can be really good. I think getting Tom Brady would be more of a ploy to get people excited about the Las Vegas Raiders and start coming to their games.
And paying for that expensive stadium.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. The other one, which kind of goes hand in hand, I do not think he would go here. I think he would die if he went here, but
Chargers.
to the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, that's the other one I was thinking.
But I don't think he would go there because we got to look at Phillip Rivers and his history with the Chargers. Most of the time, Rivers was getting rushed within like 3 to 4 seconds.
Exactly.
He used to have one of the fastest releases in the NFL solely because he is getting rushed so hard and so often that he just had to get rid of the ball so fast.
And sorry, continue. Sorry.
And just to go with that, if we put Brady behind that line, Brady is used to playing with a team that blocks him and gives him all the time in the world. And we've seen games where he has had his line crumble, and when his line crumbles, he has a very bad day.
Yes. Here and I agree with you. And I think that the Chargers, the only good thing that may come out of that is because he's originally from California. I really don't see any other smart factor in Tom Brady going to the Chargers because, as I said before, he's purely a pocket passer, and there's no pocket if it's the Chargers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, and I do want to throw in one other name. This one I just saw and thought was funny, and I don't know how well it would work, but I saw the Chicago Bears on the list.
I've seen that before too. The problem is the Bears are already pretty sold on Mitchell Trubisky, which I'm not sold, but I guess the general manager is, and I guess Matt Nagy is, hoping that he'll make a turnaround this season. But I don't know. I feel like Tom Brady and Allen Robinson would be a good combo together, but I feel like Chicago has the same problem that Los Angeles does. Not a very strong offensive line, can't keep the pocket very strong. That was one of the problems I think for Trubisky as well, is he really couldn't become that pocket passer when the dude just wanted to run. So I'm going to throw that one out completely. As much as cool as it would be to have the GOAT play for my football team, it ain't going to happen.
Let's move on from Brady because we have a bigger list to cover too.
One more thing. Can I say one more thing though regarding Brady?
Definitely.
I want to go back to the Raiders just really quickly, just something to kind of consider. The Raiders do have a stronger offensive line that would give Brady more time in the pocket. And another thing, this is why I feel like if he were to leave New England, it would be to the Raiders. It would be to build ticket sales there. It'd be for the money there. It'd be for the location being in Vegas. He would have the stronger offensive line where he could act as a really good pocket passing quarterback there. Or at the very least, he could just hand the ball off to rising star running back Josh Jacobs. I think that if Brady is looking for a good system to work with, what he needs to do is he needs to go to Las Vegas. Excuse me, I'm still trying to formulate all my thoughts. Going to Las Vegas, being their quarterback maybe for 1, 2, 3 years, and at this point too, this is where he starts. The Raiders go into the draft this year. They take a quarterback, obviously not one of the top front runners, but they take someone that Brady can start mentoring and start conditioning, kind of like Jimmy Garoppolo. And then once he's to retire, then that quarterback can step up to snap the ball from under center. You kind of get what I'm saying there? I'm not saying that is what's going to happen, but I'm saying that's kind of actually a good idea.
Yeah, like I said, I agree with you. I think Brady's best options are either to stay with New England for the rest of the time or to go to Vegas.
But enough on Tom Brady.
Let's move on to next on our list. Another big name, Phillip Rivers. He has been officially released from the LA Chargers, and he's recently moved to Florida as well.
He's
in Florida.
He's in Florida, which brings up the conversation of there are 3 teams in Florida that he could potentially go to. And you and I have kind of already talked about this before. The first one on the list would be Jacksonville Jaguars. Probably not going to happen. They've got a ton of money that they have with Nick Foles still sitting there with his contract.
I'm just going to say, no, let's already cut that one out. Everyone's saying that that's a realistic, very high possibility. has not been watching football, or at least does not know anything about the Jaguars. Let's move on from that.
I would agree. Next one, I'm going to cut and go through this one really quickly too. Miami Dolphins. I'm going to say no because they already have a veteran quarterback in Ryan Fitzpatrick. Yeah, he's not as elite as Phillip Rivers, but guess what? The Dolphins are tanking for Tua, or they're going to try and take a snag at Oregon's quarterback, Justin Herbert.
Which leaves us with the final Florida team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who currently have Jameis Winston.
Yep. If he's going to play for a football team in Florida, it's going to be Tampa Bay. It's funny because the next person on our list is Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston could stay in Tampa Bay. But before I move on too much into Jameis Winston, I feel like there is the possibility that Phillip Rivers will become the new quarterback for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes the most sense, honestly, is for him to be in with Tampa. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if not Tampa, there is one other team that I would possibly consider being a good move for him. And that is the Colts. Because I don't think they're really sold on Jacoby Brissett anymore. And I think Frank Reich, being the coach there, could really work well with Phillip Rivers and his style of playing, to the point where, and the Colts are kind of in a win now mode where, they want to get back there. They want to be back with all the top dogs. And I think what was missing, the missing pieces for them this year was, first of all, injured receivers. That didn't help, but that might get better as long as they stay healthy during this next season. And Jacoby Brissett being so inexperienced.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rivers would fit in either of those places, but I'm leaning more towards Tampa Bay. But if not Tampa Bay, I think Indianapolis would be his next best spot.
For sure. Moving on to Jameis Winston, we already talked about the possibility of returning to Tampa Bay. I think the return to Tampa Bay would only happen if they don't take Phillip Rivers. Sound about right?
Oh, see, I'm thinking opposite. I'm thinking he'll return to Tampa Bay if they get Rivers. Mainly because who knows how much longer Rivers is going to have. With Eli being drafted the same year, Eli just retired. It could be that they want to bring in Rivers to kind of help to fine-tune Jameis Winston.
The problem is I feel like Jameis Winston is going to want a lot of money, and they're not going to be able to offer that to him.
I don't think anyone's going to want to offer that to him.
I think, really, to be honest, if he's not going to go to Tampa Bay, and hear me out on this one. The one thing that would have to be certain for this to happen, though, is Tom Brady does stay in New England. That's the only way that this would work.
Is him going to New England?
No, Tom Brady does stay in New England.
No. Winston going to New England.
No. I'm saying Winston should go to Vegas.
Really?
Now, hear me out. I'm not saying that Winston should become the starting quarterback.
Right.
I'm thinking he could be a backup quarterback under Derek Carr. But what I would kind of hope, and someone else had been reading this, and I kind of get it. Derek Carr has these good plays, but then he freaks out and he gets a little conservative with the ball, and he kind of chokes and gets sacked and blah blah blah. That sort of situation. He's not afraid to. He's kind of afraid. Derek Carr is. He's afraid to take risks. Whereas Jameis Winston, on the other hand, all that dude takes is risks. He's so and impulsive when it comes to throwing that ball. I mean, no wonder the dude led the league in interceptions
and touchdowns.
What if you had the two work together and hope that their attitudes, their playing styles would rub off on each other. So in this case, Winston gets a little bit more of the conservative nature with him. Derek Carr gets a little bit more impulsive and aggressive when it comes to throwing the ball.
I never thought about it like that, but you make a really good argument for that, honestly.
I mean, again, there's a lot of factors that have to go into that, and I don't even really know if Las Vegas would want to take Jameis Winston. Obviously, they've got their eyes on Brady, but we'll just have to see what happens.
See, here's my thought. I'm thinking if the Patriots keep Brady, I'm thinking Winston might go up to New England.
Which I find a very compelling theory as well, because maybe Tom Brady could at least help Jameis Winston a little bit too.
Tom Brady's gonna be like, sit down, kid. Let me show you how to actually do your job right, where your teammates will not hate you, and you will not want to, and coaches will not want to bench you because you're throwing this many interceptions.
Good point.
But let's move on from them. I think we covered those two. Let's move on to Cam Newton.
And do you see him going anywhere besides going back to Carolina?
Yes.
All right, let's hear it.
I see him actually going to Chicago.
I would love if that would happen. I would love it.
The main reason why, I feel like he would fit Chicago's system fairly well. He used to be a scramble quarterback, so he can still do that if necessary. He's had a fairly good arm where he can get to, let's say, like Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson may love a quarterback like Cam Newton. And the thing is, Newton has also gone out and said that if he were to play anywhere outside Carolina, because let's be honest, he's not the biggest fan of playing in Carolina itself.
Yeah.
He said that he wanted to go to Chicago.
Yes, you do present that he did mention that. My only concern as far as him going to Chicago is when Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy have already said that they're sticking with Trubisky, and do they want to take Cam Newton when they're a little unsure about his injuries? That's my concern, at least when it comes to the Bears.
I mean, I agree with that.
Go ahead. Yeah. When it comes to Carolina, I feel like they might be a little bit more aggressive with saying, "Hey, here's a new start. We have a new coach. You still have Christian McCaffrey, and they're going to really want to keep him since they've already lost Greg Olsen and Luke Kuechly." So, they kind of want to keep those big pieces there. May I offer 1/3 absolutely bold, outlandish destination for Cam Newton?
You may, my friend.
He follows Ron Rivera to Washington.
Okay. Really?
It's a little outlandish, but I feel like, maybe if Ron Rivera is like, I really want Cam, it could happen.
Even with Haskins there?
And that's the thing is, here's the problem with Dwayne Haskins. He's almost turning somewhat into a bit of a bust for the draft. I understand he needs to get a little bit more time, a little bit more experience under his shoulders to see if he's going to actually be a decent quarterback. But I don't know. I feel like what could be a really good thing for him is that in that case, if Cam Newton did become the starting quarterback and Dwayne Haskins got to mentor with him a little bit longer, because he couldn't really do that with Case Keenum being the starting quarterback at the beginning of last season. Maybe if Alex Smith was still the starting quarterback there might have been a possibility, but I don't even know. I'm starting to think Alex Smith's days are numbered when it comes to his time in the NFL.
Sadly, I think they are numbered, which is sad because I actually really liked him. I thought he was going to be a great player, but as we've seen in Washington, quarterbacks are not lasting up there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's true. Let's try and go through these next few names really quickly. Just because
we're running low on time, we want to speed this up a bit.
We're running low on time, and I think because of that, maybe instead, actually, Shane, let me just see what your feelings are on this. What if we continued with the free agents this week, spent a little bit more time on them, and we went on to the rookies next week?
I'm down for that. It'll be, well, not next week, but right after Combine.
Yeah, I think that's why don't we do that?
I think that would actually work out pretty strong.
So then at the very end of this, once we're done with the free agents, we can talk about kind of the breakout players for next year.
All right.
Cool. So then, we'll move on to the next one. The next guy on our list is Ryan Tannehill. Again, same question that I kind of had with Cam Newton. Do you think he's going to be anywhere else besides Tennessee?
Ryan Tannehill? Honestly, not likely.
Yeah, I think he's the future for the Titans. But on the other hand, what about Derrick Henry?
Derrick Henry, I don't think Tennessee is going to let go of him.
I don't think they could either, just because he's the more valuable piece than Ryan Tannehill is. I mean, yes, they work really well together as the 1-2 punch, and I feel like the two should go together. But let's be honest, who's the more valuable player between the two? It's Derrick Henry.
Oh, by far.
Um,
By far.
I know that we had seen something really interesting about what if Derrick Henry became the starting running back for the Houston Texans. Man, that would be one terrifying team. But I don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for Tennessee, I think they would rather keep Henry than keep Tannehill.
Yeah,
If it were to
agree.
come down between the two, that's how I think it would play out.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it. We can move on to this one really quickly. Dak Prescott. Is he going to go anywhere else besides the Cowboys? Probably not.
Probably not.
He's their guy. The next one is Derek Carr. We've mentioned him a little bit already. But the only thing that we need to bring up with this, Shane, is the one thing that we haven't discussed yet, which is if Derek Carr leaves Las Vegas altogether, would he go anywhere? Because the biggest thing is, like, Raiders fans do not like him right now. He's been very polarizing for the Raiders fan base. And I already know that Raiders fan base is crazy enough as it is. But when they don't like their quarterback on top of that, that's pretty wild. So if Derek Carr were to not get that fresh new start in Vegas, where would he go?
You know, it's hard for me to say. Because I'm thinking everybody is seeing this as a fresh new start for Carr. If anything, Brady comes in and probably takes over, and Derek Carr sits right behind him.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what the general consensus is going to be as of right now. I think if he were to not make the move to Vegas with everybody else, I think we might look at like a Blake Bortles situation where he goes somewhere else, but as a backup. I don't think he will get a job as a starting quarterback. I think he's literally going to be looked at, and a lot of teams are going to be like, "I'll give you second string money."
I agree. Now, as far as a place that he could go as a backup, why am I thinking the Texans would be really fun to see him as the backup quarterback there?
It could be very interesting. I mean, I don't think Watson is going to get super badly injured anytime soon, and I hope not, because he's another player I really like.
Yeah.
But I think Carr could be a good backup for Watson if anything were to happen.
If he is released by the Raiders, Shane, what if he became Mitchell Trubisky's backup in Chicago?
Would he become the backup, or would he eventually take over the starting role? Do you think, like, middle of the season, like, Trubisky's not performing as what we have seen many times is not doing well, do you think that they would bench him in favor of Carr?
I think that they would if Trubisky wasn't really performing well. I mean, that's the point of a backup quarterback that they're bringing in for competition. You know, there are two names that we don't have on this list that we have brought up before, which are Marcus Mariota and Andy Dalton. We don't have them on this list, even though we probably should. But in their case, they could hypothetically do the same thing for Trubisky or for any other quarterback that they would be put in direct contention with for, saying, okay, well, if this quarterback doesn't deliver, then we're going to be the backup quarterback that comes in there. I think that's going to, if Derek Carr leaves, he's going to fall into that same position that Andy Dalton and Marcus Mariota would fall into, as being that little extra push to make sure the starting quarterback does his job. And if he doesn't, let's put the other guy in.
I mean, I would love if the Eagles took back Nick Foles, because then I'd be like, okay, we could potentially get Carr for a fairly cheap price as a second string.
Mm-hmm. Or if you gave Foles to someone else, you could get Dalton, too. I don't think you guys want Mariota, but maybe Dalton.
Do not want Mariota. He has been bad luck for Jacksonville.
Yeah. As far as like getting a backup quarterback for Mitchell Trubisky, like the one who could eventually take over if he underperforms, which I think there's a solid possibility that he may underperform. To be honest, my first choice wouldn't be Derek Carr. It would be Andy Dalton.
Oh, I agree.
But I know Andy Dalton can function well in that system. He just didn't do well with the poor pieces that he had around him in Cincinnati. And I don't think I don't think he's done yet. So I feel like that would be my number one choice. But again, you have to see. I feel like other teams are interested in Dalton and Mariota and Carr if he does get released by the Raiders as far as being that second option.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that. Let's move on to Jadeveon Clowney.
Who's going to pay him the big bucks? Big guy needs the big bucks.
Here's my thing. He's been good with the Texans. The Texans released him. He went to the Seahawks. He was good with the Seahawks. I I hate that he's kind of being shopped around this often for being as good as he has been.
I don't know where he needs to go.
Chicago.
Oh, no. We already are paying too much money for Khalil Mack and Eddie Jackson and Kyle Flood. We're paying too much money for our Pro Bowlers right now. But what if he teamed up with Aaron Donald in Los Angeles?
And replaced Dante Fowler Jr.?
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, look at how the Rams defense was doing back when they had Dante Fowler Jr., Aaron Donald, and Ndamukong Suh. They were pretty tough. That was what led them to the Super Bowl. That's what helped lead them to the Super Bowl last year. That and Todd Gurley being Todd Gurley, which did not happen this year. Yeah, it's unfortunate. But if that would be one scary defense. That would again kind of I feel like would put the Rams back in for, wow, this defense is looking pretty terrifying again, because we thought that we would be seeing that this year. Didn't really happen, and now we're having these changes. Dante Fowler Jr. might be leaving. Eric Weddle retired. It's Jalen Ramsey didn't. I feel like Jalen Ramsey didn't live up to the hype.
I could have told you it was not going to live up to the hype.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking, okay, do we need that other piece to bring back in there for the for the Rams? And I feel like Clowney would be pretty good at that. I mean, look how scary Jadeveon Clowney was with Tyrann Mathieu and J.J. Watt on the Texans.
I mean, if they had the cap space for this, let me theorize this to you: the Jacksonville Jaguars.
If you have the cap space.
If we have the cap space, because right now we're potentially looking. It's potentially looking like Marcel Darius is going to be cut.
Right.
That's our big defensive tackle. Calais Campbell has been talked about being shopped around or potentially coming off and going to somebody else. That gets rid of kind of the main leader of that defensive line. We'll have Yannick Ngakoue is also looking to be shopped around. That's like three of our biggest defensive line players.
Yeah.
I would say, as much as I hate to say this, maybe get rid of Campbell or Darius, and I do not want to get rid of either of them. I love both of them.
Woo!
Yeah.
Did that come out of your mouth?
Yeah, it felt dirty. It felt dirty. If at all possible, I want to keep Campbell. Campbell has been the biggest leader and the biggest name for this team, and kind of what has kept this fire alive until Minshew came in. But if they are unable to, if anything, I would say the only reason I'm picking Campbell over Ngakoue is just because Campbell's getting a little bit older, while Ngakoue is still younger and still doing pretty well.
Right.
But imagine a front line with the no longer rookie Josh Allen, sophomore Josh Allen, still young Yannick Ngakoue, and then Jadeveon Clowney as well, and then throw in just even an average defensive tackle. That's still going to be a pretty beast of a line that's going to get to the quarterback often.
Let me just say this. If our offensive line doesn't improve and the Bears go to play the Jaguars this year in Jacksonville, and you have that line, boy, I hope Mitch Trubisky's wearing brown pants.
Like I said, it's a crazy scenario. I don't think it would happen. But if it were, I feel like that would be a scary front line that would be able to do really well for a good amount of time.
Yeah. I would agree.
That's all I had to say. I know I talk about my team a lot, but I feel like that would actually do well, especially since he was part of the Texans and their division rival. So he kind of understands the Jaguars system just from playing them 2 times a year when he was a Texan.
This is true. This is very true. Okay. Do you think that covers it all with Jadeveon Clowney?
Unless you have anything else to add.
Nope, I'd say let's move on to the next one.
All right.
Our next one on our list, who rounds out, for the most part, rounds out our quarterback selection. I mean, we had Nick Foles on here, but we don't quite know his situation there yet. He's not technically a free agent. I put him on here.
I'm going to say just because I've been watching, hoping and praying that somebody takes him off of us, but I think he's going to stay in Jacksonville because even if we were to trade him over to a team, we would only relieve about $2 million in cap space, and we would probably have to trade away like a second round draft pick.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll probably skip over that one, which just leaves our last two, which are the men in waiting to Drew Brees, Teddy Bridgewater and Taysom Hill. Shane, if I'm going to be honest, Taysom Hill is staying with the Saints for sure. Teddy Bridgewater, though, doubt it. I think the Los Angeles Chargers should snatch him up.
So Taysom Hill, we talked about this before. I don't think Taysom Hill should be a starting quarterback because I think that's going to hurt him and limit him more than the role he is playing now.
Yes, because the guy can be a wide receiver, he can be a tight end, he can be a quarterback. He's quite versatile and it's really cool.
And I think that is what gives him such a high value is that versatility. You take away that versatility and turn him into a starting quarterback, I think he's going to fall down in the ranks. Even though he did show signs of great position in the quarterback, I think that he would lose everything that makes him unique and everything that makes him, dare I say it, elite level.
I hear you on that one.
However, with Bridgewater, you're thinking the LA Chargers. This, I would say LA Chargers is a good possibility, but even another possibility would be maybe even the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
That's another team. Oh, I have another team. Hold on. I got two more teams. The Carolina Panthers, if Cam Newton were to leave.
Right.
I feel like he could succeed there. And then the other one, I'm going to say maybe it's time the Lions start to move on from Matthew Stafford and look at Teddy Bridgewater.
I know that one's been in the conversation. I know that, believe it or not, the other two NFC North teams that do not have Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback have also been brought up in the conversation for Teddy Bridgewater. Either he becomes the backup for Mitchell Trubisky, or the Vikings say, okay, get out of here, Kirk Cousins. We're going to bring Bridgewater back. You go somewhere else.
See, I feel like the Vikings wouldn't do it. The main reason is because the Vikings and Bridgewater kind of had like a little bit of a falling out towards the end of his tenure there.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
So that's why I feel like I don't think Bridgewater. I think the Vikings might chase after him, but Bridgewater will be like, yeah, no, I'm gonna be good unless you guys like make me an offer I absolutely cannot refuse.
Yeah, pretty much.
Although, now that I'm looking at this and thinking about this even more, I'm sorry, I feel like he has a few potential landing spots. He could go to the Cincinnati Bengals.
They want to spend the money on him, though, or on better players to surround Joe Burrow with?
That's true. And see, that's kind of be the controversy. It's like, do you also bring in Bridgewater to help make sure that Joe Burrow truly is ready?
Yeah.
Another team, Cleveland Browns. If the Browns start to fall off the Mayfield train, because as we've seen, they've had no problem getting rid of a quarterback for a long time.
Yeah. Dude, I fell off the Mayfield train, I think, in week 1 of last season.
And then the last team that I would say, and this is like a high if, is maybe the Denver Broncos.
Yeah. Oh, hey, what if Brady leaves New England and he goes to New England?
Okay, no, see, I don't want the Patriot dynasty to continue. I want it to end with Brady. I don't want it to continue.
Okay, all right. I'll shut that one
I
down.
think Bridgewater would be good, a good replacement to keep the dynasty alive, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, all right.
But man, I would hate that. Oh. No, can you imagine? Like we get everybody in the NFL gets so close to seeing like the end of the Patriots dynasty. Like everyone that isn't a Patriots fan has been kind of been like, I am ready for the Patriots dynasty to end. I'm just tired of seeing the Patriots all the time. Then Teddy Bridgewater comes in and basically becomes the new Brady, and then you're stuck with it for another like 10 plus years, and you're like, this dynasty is never gonna end. Let's all just retire.
No. That dynasty does not die with Tom Brady, and you know that. That dynasty dies with Bill Belichick retiring or dying.
Okay, but let's look at this. Brady's gonna leave. Belichick's probably only gonna have like a year or two left in him, just because he's already talked about in the past being like, he doesn't know how much longer he plans on doing this. So if Brady were to leave, he kind of loses the main piece that he has worked with, and to try to like, I feel like he has been so accustomed to Brady because he's been with Brady for so long. If a new quarterback comes in and it's going to basically be like he has to start from square one again. And I feel like after like a season or two, he's going to be like, yeah, okay, I'm done. I'm too old to deal with all of this all over again.
Yeah, I get that. Well, yeah.
It'll be interesting, but we don't know.
So that covers, our big discussion for this week, talking about, these free agents and their futures. With the time that we have left, Shane, I know we had something else planned for our For the Fun, but I feel like that to some extent speaks for itself. And that could be something we could address later as we get closer to the beginning of the season. So I had another subject in here that I guess we will technically make as our, quote, For the Fun topic of this week, which is who's going to be the breakout player in their second year and what needs for that to happen. I think in this case, Shane, let's have you pick someone from the AFC and from the NFC, and I'll pick someone from the AFC or the NFC, or, if we agree, then that's that, of one player that we're like, ooh, yeah, they could be really good next year. They're gonna become a star in their second year. So does that sound good to you?
Does it? So when we're talking about breakout, I just want to make sure that me and all the fans watching have this clear. When we are talking breakout, are we including rookies that even had a star performance year this past season?
I'm talking about a breakout player. Yes. So yeah, even if they had a really good, like rookie season, I'm talking about to the point where now where when they become like one of the top leaders in their category, and they really start to wow, and they start to get up for Pro Bowl contention. They start to like make their franchise that has been struggling in the past look like they're going to be a big franchise piece that could lead them to a Super Bowl in the future. That's what I'm basically getting at. So that could be. So I'm talking about like, in this case, we had two names on this list. We had Kyler Murray and Gardner Minshew. Both of them, yeah, they had good rookie seasons, but they still qualify for breakout player in their second year, where they're really going to kick it into overdrive.
Okay. I want you to go first because I'm having to decide between AFC right now. NFC is an easy one for me. AFC is kind of a lockdown between three.
Right. Well, tell you what, I know that you're probably going to want to pick one of the players from the Jaguars. So I'll let you do that honor. I'd really like to see, and I somewhat expect a breakout year for Josh Jacobs.
Oh yeah, he's in my top three.
Oh man, I think he's going to be really good. I think the dude is a straight up star. And it's really cool seeing his background being, that he used to be homeless and now he's become at this point, a bigger face for the franchise than Derek Carr is right now, just because people are seeing the future, the hope that is going to come with Josh Jacobs playing as the running back as they move from this transition from Oakland to Las Vegas. I think that Jacobs will rush for over 1,000 this next season.
Okay. What do you think needs to happen for him to accomplish that rushing for 1,000?
To accomplish that, I think there needs to be a mindset in John Gruden's mind that his star is not the quarterback. His star is the running back.
Okay.
And so in this case, now, yes, this could change if Tom Brady ends up becoming the starting quarterback in Vegas. But say if they still stick with Derek Carr or they get someone else, they teeter the offense, they change it a little bit more to sort of take the Derrick Henry approach with doing a really run-heavy game. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion, I could honestly see a season for Josh Jacobs next year where he's a more talked about running back than Ezekiel Elliott.
I mean, Zeke kind of died down. Here's my thought in the back of my head for Jacobs, because he is in my thoughts as a top 3, and I'm not going to pick him just because we're covering him now.
Yeah.
I'm thinking he might be another Christian McCaffrey, where he could have a 1,000 season if he gets the right quarterback.
If he gets the right quarterback, yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think Josh Jacobs' name will, as at the end of next season, will be up there with the Christian McCaffreys, the Derrick Henrys, the Dalvin Cooks.
Yeah, I think that he is by far going to be one of the most dominant net season. Oh, which leaves me to my choice, unless you want to cover anything else about Jacobs.
Go ahead. All you.
This
AFC,
leads me to my choice. My choice is coming down between Josh Allen, the defensive end, or Gardner Minshew, the quarterback who lit the NFL on fire in more ways than one. And it's so hard to say. I think Allen is going to have the better season and break out more, but I think Minshew is going to come up, and if he has that good season, he's going to light the entire fan base and start lighting up the NFL a little bit more.
I would say this. If Gardner Minshew has a breakout year in his second year, where he does better in his second year than in his rookie year, I would say this in regards to this. That would be very important to the Jaguars, because we don't know what Ryan Tannehill is going to be able to accomplish in his second year with the Titans. There is the possibility Phillip Rivers goes to Indianapolis, and we already know what Deshaun Watson can do. That's going to keep
division.
It's going to keep you guys alive, and it may even throw you into becoming contenders for that title or for a wild card, whether depending it's 2 wild card seeds or 3 wild card seeds, depending on what the NFL decides. I think it resides more on his shoulders than it does on Josh Allen's.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not to say anything against Josh Allen, because obviously no defenses can totally change things. Look at what happened to the Bears last season. But I think it does rest more on Minshew's shoulders and his mustache than it does on Josh Allen.
And the jorts. You can't forget the jorts.
Oops, I forgot.
But, and this is going to be weird. So I'm going to pick Minshew for this, because I think that it's more so he's going to have a breakout year, but it's also he needs to have that big year as well. And I'm even going to say this for both of them. To have a dominant second season, they need to have a better offense. In the sense of, in Minshew's position, he needs a better offensive line so that he can scramble when he needs to instead of when he has to.
Uh-huh.
And in the sense, if the offensive line can hold down the fort for Minshew to make whatever play he needs to make, either throwing it down the field or scrambling for it, that's going to give the defense time to rest off the field, which is going to allow Josh Allen more time to rest and get ready for when he comes back onto the field and just to dominate. And it'll just be a 1-2 punch instead of just a 1 punch and the defense getting worn out.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, let's move on to the NFC side of things. I already know who my pick is. I'm pretty sure we're going to have the same pick as well.
Are we both going for Bosa?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Here's the reason, because Kyler Murray's on this list, but you know what? I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't think he's a bust, but I feel like when it comes to Kyler Murray's second year, it's going to look more like Baker Mayfield's second year than it is going to look like, some superstars. Then look like Tom Brady's second year or something like that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It it's going. I think Kyler Murray can still make good plays, but I don't. I think he's okay. I hope no Cardinals fans come after me for this, but I think he's a little. I think Kyler Murray is a little overrated. I don't. Many of you have heard me here. I don't think he was deserving of that Rookie of the Year award. I firmly believe it should have gone to Josh Jacobs, and I will fight that with my dying breath. But I'm not seeing it with him. And even if the Cardinals are able to get a little bit more semblance of a football team this next year, I don't see it. I think what we're going to be seeing here is Nick Bosa continuing his domination of the defensive side of the ball. Let's be honest. Okay, yes, the running game for the 49ers, yeah, that definitely got them to the Super Bowl, but it was that defense. I mean, that combination with D Ford and Nick Bosa, it was scary.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, it was a little. Nick Bosa, I think, is going to be the best within the NFC by far.
If we had to pick an offensive player from the NFC, who would it be?
Psh, I don't know because I don't think that really any NFC player had that great of a season on the offense at least.
Right. So if one was going to all of a sudden just turn it around and do really well in the second year, to be honest, of these players that I'm seeing here, if we're thinking quarterbacks, there's going to be three players right now, three rookie quarterbacks that come to mind of, ooh, they could turn things around, or at least they could have the opportunity to. There's Daniel Jones, there's Dwayne Haskins, there's Drew Lock. I'm going to be honest, the one who is the most likely to do that would be Lock.
Isn't Locke with the Broncos?
Yes.
That's AFC.
Oh wait, no, that's AFC. Dang it. Never mind. I was thinking AFC. Okay. Yep. Never mind. I'm totally throwing everything out here that I had that. Sorry, I saw Drew Lock's name on here, and I was like, we haven't talked about him yet, so I automatically lumped him in here with the NFC. Never mind. Forget about that. That's Daniel. At least Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins, and ooh, I have lower expectations for Haskins and Jones than I do for Murray.
You know, that's the funny thing where you're like, okay, let's talk NFC offense. I'm like, what NFC offensive player? There's
Yeah.
if any, I would say Daniel Jones for the main reason he showed flashes of being a really, really good quarterback.
Yeah, he was better than we thought he was going to be.
Here's the thing: Kyler Murray went #1 overall, was expected to be like this super dominant, and I had like a little Twitter discussion with somebody who I'm assuming was a diehard Cardinals fan, and like I was just talking about like this was when like the Rookie of the Year or Offensive Rookie of the Year, and I was like, yeah, I don't think Murray should have won it. I don't think that he was that good. He didn't have that good, and he's like, well, Murray had a crappy team around him. Like the Jaguars are like a million times better than the Cardinals. I'm like, no, they're not. The Jaguars' offense is piss poor. And
Yeah.
just to compare the two, so Minshew started for 12 games, and he came in first quarter because Foles got injured in the first game against the Kansas City Chiefs, who went on to win the Super Bowl. So, I mean, everyone can imagine kind of like a rookie going against what eventually became the Super Bowl champions, how that went. Didn't go that bad. And then he also got benched later on. Foles came in for 2.5 games and then got benched in favor of Minshew. Just to throw out the stats for them real quick. So, Kyler Murray started for all 16 games. He had 3,722 passing yards. Minshew, who probably played for 12 and 3/4 of a football game, he had 3,271 passing yards. Only 500 less and about 3 less games than him. So to me, like, that's already kind of pushing. It's like, okay, Murray didn't even like get that many good passing yards out.
Yeah.
Net stat: 21 touchdowns Minshew, 20 touchdowns Kyler Murray. Minshew threw one more touchdown, and people made the debate. Well, he had DJ Chark as a receiver. I'm like, yeah, but that was it. That was his only receiver that could do well every single game. Murray doesn't have that many options, but he does have the legendary Larry Fitzgerald even in his older age. This is the one that gets me the biggest, where I think that Kyler Murray is overrated, and I think that Daniel Jones, I think Drew Lock, that all these other quarterbacks I think will do better. Gardner Minshew has 6 interceptions, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So this has nothing to do with like how good your receiver is or anything. This is solely off a quarterback, in my opinion, with the interceptions. That's making a good decision on your part and throwing it to the right guy at the right time. Minshew has 6 interceptions. Kyler Murray had 12.
Yeah.
So to me, that speaks that Kyler Murray is not that reliable, and I trust other quarterbacks more than him.
I can see that. And I don't really want to I'm not going to say too much more about it because everyone kind of already knows my opinion about Kyler Murray. I'm still I haven't paid attention enough to Minshew. I've only been hearing what you've been telling
Yeah.
to really make an honest opinion about that. But with Kyler Murray, I've seen enough to say no.
I mean, there's not too many, because Daniel Jones didn't start in every single game for the Giants. Drew
No.
Lock came in like a little more than halfway through the season for the Broncos. I think Minshew was the only other quarterback who was like playing fairly consistently throughout all the season to kind of compare the two for the most part.
Yeah.
And I'm even trying to like find Daniel Jones's real quick. Daniel Jones didn't have that great of a season. He played a lot less, but he threw for like about 3,000 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Same amount of interceptions, but more touchdowns with less yards and less play time.
Also had the most fumbles out of any quarterback.
That is also, yeah. My main thing is, I don't think that Kyler Murray is this great, unstoppable quarterback that everyone thought he was going to be.
Don't add us, but yes, that is what we think.
I'm sorry, everyone that's fans of Kyler Murray. I don't think the Offensive Rookie of the Year deserved the award. I don't think that he's going to have a great season next year, especially with a struggling Cardinals team.
Case closed on that one, if you ask me. That kind of wraps it up then, doesn't it?
Yep, that about wraps it up. I mean, we covered who we think everyone's going to go to, who we think is going to have a breakout. Cover a little bit of the news going on. I think that covers about everything.
Yeah, it's been a lot of really good discussion that's been happening here, Shane, between you and me. We'll just have to kind of see what happens when free agency starts up. I mean, this is going to be a really crazy offseason when you talk about the free agency, the amount of talent that's coming in for these rookies, and if this whole new plan for the regular season for the NFL does pan out, we're going to be seeing something very different come next September.
And I mean, I think here's the crazy thing. In the past, we have seen, and it's been talked about, it's like, whoa, this is going to be a really crazy offseason with a lot of big stuff. I think this is probably going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, within the Super Bowl era, because for like the first time, we are not sure of what Tom Brady's situation is going to be in the future.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of big-name quarterbacks that we're just not 100% sure what is going to be going on with them, which means this could shake up a lot of the dynamic within the NFL. We got Combine coming up next week, and then everything's going to start to kind of just fall down after that with free agency once that hits.
It's really compelling, and it really makes me want to make sure that I stay up to date on every little bit of news, not just for this podcast, but for just finding out for myself, because it's going to determine a lot of how this next season is going to go, and I'm really excited for it, and we hope all of you are as well.
And with that being said, I mean, join us on the podcast. That way you can get all the latest updates and news around the NFL with who's going where, what exactly is happening, and to stay updated, tell your friends, tell your family, join in on all the discussion and all the fun.
100%. And we appreciate those who are already joining us, but let's keep it going. Let's keep this thing going because it's a lot of fun. I love talking football. I love talking sports in general. Sometimes I think I do it too much, but oh well.
All right. Well, with that being
At
said,
least you can,
guys, go ahead.
I was just say at least you can say that I'm passionate. You can't say that I'm really boring and I have nothing to talk about.
Yes, we have a lot of passion here on For the Fans. We are not boring in any way whatsoever. And if you think that, please don't tell us because it will make me cry at night.
No, you can tell us and then just don't listen to our podcast. Seriously.
Anyways, with that being said, we'll see you guys in about 2 weeks. Have a nice night and keep updated with football and come back and join the discussion with friends and family.
Absolutely. Have a good night, everyone.